Hello, podcast listeners and anime fans. This is Torn.
And I'm Andrew.
And today I'm excited to be talking about BOFURI. I don't want to get hurt, so I'll max out my defense. For those that have not watched it yet, it is available on Funimation to watch. As for the next episode, keep your eye out on Twitter for the announcement, because I don't know what we're doing.
Yeah.
Some IRL stuff has made this more difficult, so yay work. I've been working Saturdays, forced mandatory Saturdays. It's not fun.
Gross.
As for this, though, spoiler alert, as per usual.
An anime that came out years ago.
Yes. Go watch it if you haven't. But either way, Andrew, get us started.
I gave it an IGN score of 80. It's a really cool and immersive sim that really greatly suffers from game balance.
Yeah, we'll definitely be talking about game balance because, well, I guess if nothing's balanced, isn't everything balanced?
I don't know. If everything is a one-hit kill, is that balance?
Like, can everything be a one-hit kill? We'll get into that. Anyway, for me, BOFURI is a lighthearted take on what happens when a carefree person drops into a game and just goes with the flow. I gave it an 8 out of 10. So.
Woo, same score.
Yeah.
I just said it differently. Yeah.
Can't get higher than 8 because plot reasons. We'll get into that. But for those who haven't watched it since it came out, due to the recommendation from her friend, Kaide Hanju agrees to check out the VR MMORPG game New World Online, not to be confused with Amazon's New World. This one's actually good. When she joined the game, she created her character Maple. Since she does not want to get hurt, she makes Maple a Great Shielder class and dumps all of her stat points into Vitality. As she sets off into the game through her bumbleheadedness and carefree attitude, she sticks her nose up to the RNG god and obtains strong skills and loot that make her ridiculously overpowered. Along the way, she makes friends, creates a guild, has them nerf her in-game, and participates in game events, all having fun along the way. So, yeah.
All sorts of absurd skills.
I have to comment on that one thing right away. What's the RNG in this game? Everybody in her guild gets a one-of-a-kind armor set that specifically works for their build.
Right.
What the heck? I don't know if she's breaking RNG or if, like, this game just doesn't have RNG.
I fell off a cliff and I found an item that gave me a quest starter for the next level.
Yeah, it's like, were they thinking that far ahead when they were making this game? Or, like,
how many people had that same drop? Is it just her?
I don't. The amount of times that she, like, stumbles or something and then, like, finds a random coin.
It's every time. Yeah. It's every time. I'm walking through the city and run into a random NPC that gives me a quest.
Yeah. I mean, that one I kind of understand, but then you look at what the prize at the end of the quest is and you're like, what? Well, yeah. Okay, then again, her character is very diverse. So she's not entirely, like, on her one goal of, like, just being high defense. She ends up with stuff that's not, but we'll get more into her in a second. Let's start talking about the game itself, though, which we kind of have already. Like, what the hell's your RNG? So it's a VR MMO RPG. Nice. There's been other shows and stuff that use this concept. I'd say overall, the game looks great.
Yeah, like, the game, as if you took it as not a combat RPG game, I don't think I would leave.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish we knew a little bit more about it because is like a crafter. It's like, okay, is there other people in this world that are playing this game, like, in essence, not as the typical adventure? Like, just making their own little shops, providing their services? Because we only see her doing that. And if that's the case, that, like, you can do that in this game and do it prevalently, this game looks great. And it does follow the same trope of your skills are what you do. So, like, if you do stuff in game, you can potentially unlock skills that allow you to do that better. So the example is she hit something with her shield, she got like the shield bash skill or shield attack, I think is technically what they called it. So you could do stuff like that where you do something actively in game and then become better at it. So obviously if you're like a good cooking person and you start cooking in game, you'd probably get like really good cooking skills.
Right.
I like that concept. It's a fun concept. It's partly how this game gets broken.
I want to go into that a little bit because her friend Sally
Yeah.
has a thing in the later episodes that is she's just calling out skills of Cascade and Coke's attack and then either blocking everything or dodging everything in doing so. But those are just her natural abilities. She's just lying about having skills.
Yeah. It's crazy because I love the interest between that. So you have Maple, who is apparently never played a game before, and it makes me wonder: did she buy the VR headset as well, just because of the recommendation? Like, did she go buy a game? Yeah, buy a game plus the like full dive or whatever VR headset thing, like just because her friend said you should play this game. Like, is it that much of a commodity now that they're that cheap?
I assume it's just Facebook's $300 VR headset in the future when it's actually a full dive headset.
Yeah, maybe it's also possible maybe she had it before for like non-game stuff. Like in the future, who knows? Maybe you watch media through it or whatever. But,
well, they do. They do adjust the time scale of the game. Like you could do a 5-day event in
2 hours or whatever.
2 hours or a night. Like, imagine doing that for studying.
Oh my god, that'd be amazing.
You get homework and you put on the VR headset and then you just spend 3 days studying and then you take it off and now it's time for dinner.
That would be amazing. Being able to just spend like 2 IRL hours and technically like study for days. I do want to cover that a little bit in a bit because I do want to talk more about that concept. Back just in the game itself though, you had talked about we were talking about how like Maple is like never played a game, has no experience. Sally is actually the opposite. She has won like competitions for gaming and like various games. And I do find it amusing that Maple's like, okay, I'm going to go all vitality, all defense, not a single point in anything else.
Yes.
And we find out Sally in real life is very like athletic, very dexterous, very agile. So she's in essence decides to play something in game that's kind of the same.
Right.
They make the comment though when she first makes her character about like, oh, you're doing like a stat spread. She puts like 10 in strength, 10 in vitality, like a very small amount, and then dumps pretty much everything else into agility. By the end, I swear to God, she's just dumping in agility.
Yeah,
like, I mean, she's just doing what Maple did in essence. So,
yeah, the game seems to really enjoy when people just dump all their points into one stat.
I feel like this is going to be like some other games I've actually played where dumping a very minute amount into pretty much everything, kind of like Sally did to start, like just enough to not walk super slow like Maple, like get
right
enough to get an average walking speed. So whatever that is, 10 points, 5 points, whatnot. You just average everything to like a normal person, and then you just dump stat into one stat. It just seems to be what the game favors.
Right.
Especially since skills make up for everything.
Yeah, I mean, it could also be like Dark Souls. You get to a certain point in your leveling, and then it's really diminishing returns. But you still want to keep using that same major stat because you're still getting returns. They're just less.
I feel like this game needs to add a diminishing return cap to their skills,
or need to remove some of Maple's skills.
Yeah. Why is there? If you make a game, why would you ever have skills that straight up double the payout of a stat, like an attribute?
That's an absurd balance.
And not only that, she got 2 of them, so she has 4 times the vitality.
They stack somehow. That kind of skill should not stack.
Thought this was a good idea. What game developer thought this was a good idea? And she's not the only one. They get the guild bonus that gives 10% strength across the board,
Hmm.
and they get the what's it,
The
an
three
item?
percent from the 3% from the cow thing
No, that's
as
what I was
well.
talking about though. That like guild, yeah. But the no, I'm trying to remember. I think it was an item they get for the two girls, for May and Yui, that give them 2 times strength. So it's like they get the guild
Oh,
bonus of
yeah, no,
strength.
it was for rushing through the first
Yeah, it's a
boss.
skill. Yeah,
It's a skill, like,
that just gives them 2 times strength. So it's like, oh, so they dump all strength. There's a skill that gives them 2 times strength. Plus, they're getting a guild cross the bonus of percentage increase.
yeah.
What developers thought this was like? Okay, yeah,
Also, does Maple have that skill as well, despite having a strength of 0?
yes, because remember they make that joke like, oh, this won't matter for Maple, but she had
Oh, yeah.
atrocity, and she hadn't
Yeah,
shown
she
him
got
yet.
atrocity, and then that doubled her strength.
Yeah, because atrocity gives her 50 strength while she's in atrocity. So
Hmm.
actually, uh, she didn't get the double, but she got the like 10% increase or whatever. So it became
Right.
55. So it's like, yeah, the guild bonus like affected her because she freaking just goes into atrocity and gets 50 strength. The one thing I, the one thing I do wish, I need to stop touching my mic stand. The one thing I do wish that they would get into that they don't with this game is they never give us a reference point. Like, what is high vitality? I don't think at any point they really give us a reference of like, oh, 200 is like high, because she ends
Yeah,
up over 1,000.
I mean, at the party at the end of the episode, she's like, "I think it broke 5 numbers or five
Yeah,
digits." And like everybody goes, "Uh."
yeah. I want to know what. Like, I really wish they would have just, even if it was an offhand comment, like once, where one of the more simple characters, like Kazumi or Kuromu, would like mention what their strength is, or in the text messages, like at the end of each episode. Like that would be great if like one of them asked like, "Hey, what's your guys' vitality?" And then like everyone just responds with what theirs is. That way you
Yeah,
see like, oh, these people are all considered, high
yeah.
level characters.
What's the meta stat spread for a great shielder
Yeah.
that's not Maple?
Yeah, I want to know cuz it would give way better reference cuz Maple's only like she hasn't even reached max level of 60. I think what at the end she's like 40 somewhere
I
in
don't
there.
even. I wasn't paying attention to that.
Yeah, she passed 30 during I think it was the second event. Like she passed
When
level
they were
30.
doing the training arc.
Yeah. So it's like she's not even max level yet. And if she's in 5 digits because of her 4 times multiplier,
Yeah,
like,
and they're going to keep doing events, and I assume all of these events are going to have rewards that will probably stack.
yeah. Those freaking game devs. And it's just hilarious watching the game masters like freak out every time because they're
Yeah,
like,
and
what
they
the
just
hell?
like, how do we deal with this? And like, you don't.
No, you don't. You
We
broke your
made.
game.
They even said like, oh, we made a boss that was supposed to be unbeatable. Who beat it? Like Maple and Sally and nobody else.
Yeah. It's like this boss was literally supposed to be unkillable. And meanwhile, Sally and Maple telling other people are like, yeah, it had a lot of health. It was a hard fight. It's
Yeah,
like you weren't even supposed to kill it. Like, what the heck?
yeah.
Oh.
That was like a full raid boss for whatever 40 people.
All right. We just need to get into Maple because I have this question for you because it had to do with that fight. Because she gained Stout Guardian during that fight. Is Maple actually a barbarian? She blocks with her chest and she has Stout Guardian. She's an orc barbarian.
You might be right there if you're comparing it to D&D.
She's a orc barbarian. She comes back at 1 HP and she blocks with her chest. That's the funny thing. She has a shield and a lot during that fight with I can't remember what it's called now. Whatever feather. Um, a lot of during that fight, she just blocks by holding her arm up. Like she has a shield in her left hand, and she just blocks by holding her arm up because like her
Right.
defense is so high anyway. She doesn't even need her shield. Um, and
I'm
actually, she's just
surprised they
yeah.
didn't give her a skill for dual wielding shields.
Oh, there's time.
I
There's
mean, that
time.
might be the next thing. if later in the light novel or whatever.
Well,
But
she technically probably could, because she also got, I would think, the skill that lets her use two-handed weapons in one hand. She did the same thing that the girls did. She helped them with it.
oh yeah,
So would that apply to shields?
maybe.
It might apply to great shields. That would be hilarious. Um, no, I was literally watching that episode and I'm like, I think she is an orc barbarian at this point.
Hmm.
Like, who uses shields and armor? I just block with my chest and I can come back at 1 HP. Uh, and then Karumu gets the similar ability where like he has a 50-50 chance, I think it is, to just
Yeah.
not die whenever he hits 0 HP. All right. But yeah, let's talk a bit about her. First off, I find it hilarious that I don't know if it's a. ah, It must be like a Japanese pronunciation thing, but she calls Hydra Hedra.
It's probably just a pronunciation thing.
Yeah, it just made me laugh every time. It's like Hedra. So, okay.
I
All
mean,
right.
it's cute.
It is, I guess. So yeah, we would get a little bit into her. First off, yeah, she dumped all into vitality slash defense. It depends your translation, and that confuses me every time.
It's vitality.
Yeah, it's like most games though, vitality refers to health, but in this game it seems to do health and defense. I guess. I don't know. Um, but yeah, so she has Hydra, which seems pretty darn OP. Like,
Yeah, yeah. Early game, it's just nobody has the absurd poison resistance you need to deal with this, but she managed to do it in a day.
yeah, that's the other thing I don't get in this game is do you assume part of it is that her vitality is really high for the content when she fights the poison hydra or poison dragon?
Mhm.
Um, so she just like chugs potions and keeps taking the poison attack, like increasing her poison
Y-
resistance.
Yes.
It's like, is it because this poison was extra strong, or I mean, she might have had a lot of potions. For all we know, she sat there and drank 100 potions. Like,
Right.
we don't know how many times she sat there breaking potions. Yeah,
My concern is more, okay, you can learn poison resistance in a day and it's poison immunity. Why doesn't everybody have poison immunity?
I don't
Because
know.
there doesn't seem to be like a limit to the number of skills you can just randomly acquire.
Yeah, it does make you wonder. That's kind of what I was leaning towards. Is like he says he'll split half of his potions with her. So let's think if you take an average, like decently die-hard player, because the guy's a veteran player, how many potions do you typically carry? Kind of depends the game, but I would assume 50 to 100 maybe,
That
somewhere
would
in
be
that range.
my consider. I was going to say 50.
Yeah, so she has what 25 to 50 potions on her. And
Hmm.
she pops a potion every time it uses the ability. So let's say, 25 to 50 times she's like taking a poison attack from him. That's
Hmm.
not that many in the grand scheme of things.
No.
And in a game where you know that if you do something or like get hit with something over time, you're going to gain a skill from it or gain a like resistance to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, why don't you have more people like just
The
going out?
and the first boss is a poison hydra. Like even if you did went into that fight with no poison resistance, you would probably just go by the end of the fight if you survived would have poison, at least a low level of poison
Yeah,
resistance.
like entry level. Yeah, you would think. So this goes back to I guess like this show you can't look too deeply at because there's stuff like this
This
where it just makes no sense.
this is why I said the game is horribly balanced.
Yeah, it is. And you had made a comment before we started recording about like, how are there not like power gamers or whatever? Like people who would just do that, they'd be like, okay, there's a poison hydra guy here or poison dragon here. I'm gonna go build up my poison resistance to immunity. Okay, now I'm gonna go find one that's fire and like go build up my fire to immunity. And like they would just be going around spamming every type of element and like getting their immunity to it.
Yeah.
Um, I think part of that is that this must be a new game because they make a comment about like, hey, Pain got to like level 60 already.
Right.
And this was the first event in the show was the first event of the game. So it's
Hmm.
like, okay, this must be a game that's only maybe a few weeks old at this point.
It seems like it. Just a couple of weeks old.
So maybe part of it is that people haven't entirely picked up on this. I still find it hard to believe that a character like Pain, who's obviously a power gamer, a no-lifer in essence, I find it very hard to believe that he wouldn't like be doing that stuff. Like if he rushed 60 before everyone else was probably even 40, like
Right.
you'd think he'd be going around doing this exact thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, so
And I want to point out, Pain is the only speedrunner in this whole game. Like nobody else. Everybody goes, "Oh, Pain was the first guy to hit level 60." There's nobody else who was speedrunning a brand new game.
I
Just
mean,
him.
he could be the first to hit it, but yeah, you'd think that very shortly after there'd be other people hitting it. And maybe part of it is those people just don't care. Because you do have the people who are speedrunners that say aren't end game content people. So maybe there are some that hit 60 after him that just don't do the events because they just don't care.
Yeah.
Like that's the kind of person I typically end up being in a game like this, where it's like, okay, I hit max level and then I do my own thing. I'm not doing giant guild events or whatever. So maybe, but you'd think, yeah, maybe there'd be one or two in the other two main guilds. So I wonder if this would have benefited from like stat screens. So you know how like some anime, like at the end of it, they'll like throw up a stat screen on a character or something.
Right.
I wonder if this would have benefited from that. Where at the end, you know, they picked like a random person who maybe was a focus of that episode. And then
and then you see their circular stat screen as well as the
and then that would give us one frame of reference. Because like, you know, they throw up pains or they throw up like Mii's, and you get to see like, oh, their vitality is this or whatever. So it'd give us reference, but then it also would tell us, oh, like that person does have poison resist, like great, but just not immune. Or that would probably would have been more work than they wanted to do. All right, so let's get into how she caused him to nerf the game. So the first stupid OP thing she does is get Devour. Okay.
Immunity to attacks.
Yeah, in essence.
Absorb the damage into mana.
Yeah. Not just absorb the damage, absorb the thing, depending its resistance, size, and scale.
Right.
So it's like, what the heck is this? Like, what game dev makes this? Who thinks it's a good idea? It's like, did you
think? Yeah. So on this drawing board, we've got the shield, and if you attack the shield, you get devoured if you don't pass your resistance check. I'm like, what's the resistance? Probably your vitality or something. I'm like, oh, that's pretty strong. It's like a save or die? Yeah, it should be fine. Oh, is this like a limited per day thing? I'm like, nah.
Nah, why would you do that? PvP is not a thing in this game. Doesn't matter. The thing that I find even crazier is you might not entirely be correct. She put it on her shield. Does that mean you could put this on your weapon? And if you hit someone with it, it would do the same thing?
God.
What if you were an archer and you could put it on your bow and then it applied to arrow shots?
Yeah, or you're a ninja and you just stab somebody real quick and then they just instantly disappear.
Yeah, because that's the thing is she says, ooh, I'll put this on my shield. And it's like, does that mean you could put it on a weapon? Because they eventually nerf it to where it can only work 10 times a day. Still seems pretty
really
high.
Strong.
Yeah, still seems really high.
And you seemingly can change your gear as you want. Imagine just getting that skill 15 times and getting 15 different weapons and putting the skill on each one of them.
Yeah, if you could obtain the same skill multiple times over, that could get ridiculously broken. I think a ninja person probably would be one of the worst because you put it on like your dagger, you put it on like your shuriken, you put it on like all these freaking like throwing daggers. Like you could just be blasting people with Devour and it would be ridiculous. Man, it's such a broken ability. And the fact that it's like I don't know what the check is, but it feels like the check is you're not going to pass it because during that first event, every single person that attacks her, she either paralyzes because she gets paralyzing shout, also OP. The range on that seems like
absurdly
if you're in the area of me, and I mean area as in game area, which is just massive, it paralyzes them for a set amount of time, I'm assuming. So she either paralyzes them and then like walks around, just taps him with the shield and devours him, or they attack and she just blocks with the shield and devours them, and it's flawless every time it works. Like,
yeah, there's nobody survives that at all.
It's so ridiculously powerful, and then that becomes one of her like weaker abilities towards the end, because she gets stuff like that one's pretty bad. She gets the poison immunity.
She gets the AO defense angel halo ability.
Well, I was trying to cover a few of the simpler ones. I don't have the names for all of them, because she has 2 of them that give 2 times vitality, which are broken. She gets the Stout Guardian, which lets her, if they manage to somehow kill her, she comes back with 1 HP, because that's not bad enough. And then she gets into the broken stuff like Loving Sacrifice. Anyone who's so she gets Cover Move, which she uses to negate the fact she's slow. So she can just use Cover Move and jump in front of an ally. So she spams the crap out of this, because like Sally's really fast, so she just keeps spamming it to catch up to Sally.
Right.
Or Sally like piggybacks her, because I guess she has enough strength to do that at least. But she also has Cover. So Cover.
I would have liked to joke about Sally, like, "Ooh, man, Maple, you're really heavy."
Yeah, they should have done the joke.
I'm not that fat.
How did they not, with the comedy in their show, how did they not make that joke once?
Yeah.
I guess they're just that friendly. But anyway, she gets Cover as well, which in essence seems to just be like a strong block that helps people who are behind you type thing. They actually don't mention what it is, but she Cover Moves in front of people and then uses Cover to like block with her shield. So Loving Sacrifice is the Cover Moves big bro version, which is, instead of like cover and blocking the person, like using your shield and protecting the people behind you, it's AoE. If you're within this range, you get cover effects. In essence, you get her vitality stat. Like, you're within this circle, no one can hurt you.
Right, unless they can hurt Maple.
Yeah. The only, I guess, the downside to it, because that is one of the things that they don't tell us with a lot of these abilities what like the mana cost is, or what the downside is. Some of them they do. So Loving Sacrifice, she takes a huge HP hit to cast it. So that's one of the downsides, is to cast it, it uses a lot of her HP. She also has a lot of HP, so like, does it really matter?
That's not a lot of, Is it a percentage or is it flat?
I would assume it's percentage, but like, I think the games I can think of, an ability like that would, at most use 20% of your HP, probably something like that. Her HP is broken to begin with. So it does that. And the second side effect is it doesn't just give them her block. It gives them her block, and any damage that gets past the block, she takes. The people inside the AoE don't take.
Yeah.
So it redirects. That's the sacrifice part, I guess, of Loving Sacrifice, is that she takes whatever damage happens within that circle. Once again, doesn't matter. They're not getting hit to begin with. So
right.
It does matter.
So they added piercing weapons, but
yeah, nerfed her as well by adding piercing damage. Isn't that great? Who makes a game and doesn't have piercing damage? Like, really? Anyway, they eventually add it. So yeah, she gets that. She gets Atrocity, which just turns her into a demon. Right after she can turn into an angel, she gets the ability to turn into a demon.
Yeah, I want to point out, she keeps getting skills by eating monsters, which is another thing that, who designed that? Like, sure, you can add food and it like has a taste, but who added the ability to bite down on a monster and it turn into food that you can taste?
I mean, that part I'm not too shocked about, that like things have taste, or because that, to me, that's something you would implement in a game as like a base level. So you would implement like that certain things in the game associate to certain tastes, and this is how you would develop probably your food system for like a full dive type game.
If you're gonna have like a cook class,
yeah, you would just have it be that everything in the game has like attributes that would associate to a taste or whatever. Yeah, it is weird that someone took that a step further and just
let you eat monsters live.
I would imagine that even could get implemented just naturally. It's just who tied that into the skill system, where when you consume this thing, you get a skill. That's the part
Right.
that confuses me. It's like everything up till then, whatever. This is part of like if you're making a full dive game, you would naturally have to have everything have like a taste associated with it, just because it's easier than making a taste for every food. It's like if people are going to be combining different ingredients that are not expected, you need everything to have an association for flavor or
Hmm.
whatever. But yeah, the fact that yeah, with the Hydra, she's like, I can't kill you, you can't kill me. I guess I'll eat you,
Yeah.
and that gives her skills. What?
Yeah.
Um, and then after that, she found out that she could just eat everything,
Yeah.
and that's
Then
how
she does that for a number of things she can't kill.
I think almost every skill she gets up till the like final four. I think she got from eating, if I remember right. It's like the final four she got from quests. Like loving sacrifice she got from a side quest. Atrocity she got from just like a zone quest. Machine God she got from a quest that she stumbled upon. Woolly she got from just playing with sheep.
Yeah.
Um, so I think those like the last four things she got are not from eating, but I think everything else was from eating.
Yeah.
What? Okay, but yeah, so the atrocity allows her to become a demon, and then she machine gods the like big bad final ability she gets, which is just she turns into like a mecha almost.
I also want to point out her armor has a mecha form. Who's the designer that they forced to work 24/7 for months at a time to every armor set in the game have a custom mecha
Yeah,
thing? Like, that's an absurd level of work.
that's where you really hope that they had an efficient game development system where it's like, okay, this is what the mecha armor looks like, and then it just like draws
Textures over.
yeah textures slash color schemes. So it's like, okay, this is your armor. Here's like the texture and color scheme. It applies to this way on this model, or like you hope
Mhm.
that's what they did, because otherwise
Yeah.
that game dev, because there's a lot of different armors you see in this game, like
Hmm.
a
Every
lot.
main character. Imagine if like Kasumi with the pink robe had that.
Yeah, the machine god thing is just hilarious. And I like how that becomes her new mode of transportation. It's like switch to machine god, shoot the ground to burst up into the air, and then like in essence she
Yeah.
just projectiles herself because she has the health. What's the fall damage?
Yeah.
I do want to make a comment about why did she think it was a good idea? She used atrocity once to, um,
Catch herself off coming off the cliff right
yeah.
before the machine god fight.
Why? Why didn't she just land?
Because they didn't want to give her a reason to use atrocity in that machine god fight.
But even then, she wouldn't need to. She used machine gun. Like
Well,
atrocity.
no, I mean, like, because she started getting beaten up, and then you would think, oh, immediately pull out your strongest skill, atrocity. Oh, she used it to catch herself earlier, so she can't use it.
Well, but at the same time, you also would use the thing of maybe she was told not to use it because later that becomes one of the clutches of like she
Oh,
uses a
don't use this more than once a day.
yeah, like, but that becomes a thing of like her big turning point is like she uses atrocity in the event and like walks around just mutilating people with atrocity, and like she tries to stay in it as long as possible to like make up for. So it
How does that not have like a timeout after like 10 minutes?
how does loving sacrifice not have a timeout? She just walks around with it. When they tell her, "Hey, go on the offensive," she just walks around with loving sacrifice the entire time.
Yeah, that's true too.
How does nothing have a timer? Like, how is this not like a you can do this for 10 seconds or something? Like,
Yeah.
game devs, what the hell? Like, once again, don't look at this too closely because like no ability seems to have a like cooldown. Well, they do mention cooldowns multiple times, but nothing seems to have a timer of like how long it lasts
Right.
or like a
I
use counter.
I don't I mean, even Machine God seems to last for ages, but it's usually left over. Like it only ends after she seems to run out of energy.
Oh, back to your comment about the poor game dev. Who's the poor game dev that had to make all the different variants of Machine God? Because like she'll just spawn the arm, or like
Oh yeah.
just spawn like literally she'll spawn like individual components of it. So it's like a game dev had to go, okay, here's all the different weapons of Machine God. Here's all the different components of it. Now I need to individually like model and set up each item as separate items. That way they can be summoned separately.
My God. Because otherwise you could just have a single model and you didn't have it cut in
Yeah.
any way. But no, no,
No,
get
she
it
like just summons the
individually.
cannon.
Yeah. Oh no.
Poor game dev. I'm so sorry for you. Oh man. That game. Oh. But yeah, so it's just kind of ridiculous, these abilities she stumbles across. But back to the thing I mentioned earlier. It is interesting, though, that a lot of the stuff that she stumbles across, like I said, isn't like at first, everything she does, everything she earns makes her like vitality spam build better. It's like purposely good for her. It ups her vitality or it gives her an immunity or whatever. Like
Yeah.
the only exception's kind of Hydra, but since that was part of with her poison immunity, it kind of made sense. Then all of a sudden like quests she stumbles across and stuff are giving her stuff that don't fit the build but kind of work. So like Wooly, for example, it's kind of an extra defense thing. She's encased in wool, so like no one can really hurt her. Kind of goes with that, but it becomes broken because she finds out she can inject it with poison. So if anyone tries to get into her,
They take a bunch of damage, but she never uses that.
yeah, no. Well, she uses Wooly during I think the final event once, but yeah, she doesn't poison it.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, whatever. And then like stuff like Atrocity, it only kind of is good for her because it makes up for her stat issue. It's like since it has 50 strength, it's very offensive. Like it's just good for her for when she like needs to trigger to be offensive. But it makes sense that that would be good for anyone. Same with Machine God. It's like she just gets these abilities that makes up for the fact she has 0 in these stats because they just naturally give you these stats when you use them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like,
I
okay.
assume it actually adds those stats, not just becomes. But
Uh
imagine having 100 or having 100 strength, and then you use atrocity, and it becomes 50.
I could see that though because you're becoming the entity. Because if that's not the case, then she's literally unkillable as Atrocity because it would have her vitality. So that's why I'm like guessing it just overrides.
Mark down for checking game balance.
Yeah. I would assume that since, as far as we know, she becomes the thing, that you just get its stats. Like it is a separate entity with certain stats. They only mention it once when they make the comment about like, oh, it's 50 strength, whatever. But yeah, I would have to go back and actually listen to the way they word it and then probably ignore it, talk to someone who knows Japanese so that I can get a better translation to like know whether it says that it sets her strength to 50 or like adds 50.
Also, including in game, I'm jumping around here because I'm remembering the final battle there.
Yeah.
Phantasmal World, the spell that Kaede casts that just makes 7 of Maple's atrocity.
Yeah. Yeah.
That also doesn't seem to time out.
Yeah. Isn't it great? Nothing seems to time out. Ugh. I don't know. And taking it back a little bit too, because this is one of those things that I could see a game dev making and then not realizing how broken it is. The spell store for, what is it, Kanade? Kanade, yeah, has her Akashic records, which cool that it gives you a separate skill every day. That's actually kind of cool. And other games have implemented that, where like they'll give you a bonus to a trade skill that changes day by day. Cool, but then she gets spell store. So it's like, okay, you expend twice the magic power to add the spell to the spell store, but then it instant casts whenever you use it.
Yeah.
In a game like this,
and it's seemingly unlimited number of spells you can start.
Yeah. In a game like this, does it costing double the magic matter at all? Like, I'm assuming you just have passive MP regeneration.
Yeah.
And MP potions, which are probably cheap.
So I can't log into the game every day, so I'll just log in for 5 minutes, cast all of my heavy spells, store them in the spell store, and leave for the day. And then when I come back the next day, my mana will be full. And by the time the weekend rolls around, when I can actually play, I'll just cast infinite black holes.
Yeah. It's like it's oh man. I can't even think of a way to game balance that. Like you'd have to heavily restrict
You
how
could,
many spells could be in there at a time.
yeah, and it would max out with very low. It would
Like
have to be
3.
like three, three
Yeah.
or five.
Because when you're cast, I mean, some of them were like, okay, whatever. Like Fireball. Yeah, an instant cast Fireball is kind of OP, but it's not ridiculous. I
No.
mean, but yeah, you get to stuff like making black holes or whatever. And it's like, this is kind of ridiculous that you could just instant cast this on someone out of nowhere for no
Yeah.
mana because, you've already stored the mana. It's like, God dang. Like some of the, yeah, I don't get it. Uh, oh, we didn't even talk about freaking syrup yet.
Yeah.
What game has these seem to be random pets? Like this is not a part of the game's implementation. Like not everyone
Also,
has a pet.
nobody else has a pet because it required beating the bird boss that is hypothetically impossible.
Yeah, and they do ask which pets they were, the eggs, or which eggs they were. So I'm going to
Hmm.
assume there must be a bunch extra in the world. So it's like these are very unique, non-standard implementation system. But both their pets have abilities that are in essence as strong as a player. So they're in essence players that are with you.
Yeah.
Cause friggin' syrup can just like grab
Hyper
people with
beam.
vines, hyper beam, like these ridiculous spells. I forget the name of it. I don't think I actually managed to find it real quick. But Oboro, by the way,
Yeah.
funny. She names her fox minced meat, which kind of goes with syrup. Okay, but
Yeah.
Oboro has like freaking ridiculous fire spells. Like in essence, I forget what it was called, but like can create like a firewall or like shoot fire abilities that seem pretty overpowered. Like
Or cast Shadow Clone, which I will say one positive thing is it wasn't Naruto's Shadow Clone where all of them are physical.
yeah, I will give credit to that where it was more of the like you don't know which one is me type thing.
Yeah.
Because unlike Maple, who's all about like defense, you can't hurt me, high vitality.
Yeah.
Sally went the route of just you can't hit me. My agility is so broken, and me as a person is so agile to begin with that you just cannot hit me.
Yeah.
Which was really cool. Except then she goes and breaks it by having that ability that if she dodges abilities, her defense goes up over time. And it's like, who thought this was a good ability to add to the game?
Right?
It's like, what's your issue as someone who spammed agility? Well, if I get hit, I die. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I have to one hit you because if I don't, that issue is now gone. Okay. Okay. Whatever. Oh, so ridiculous.
Yeah.
I just don't even. All right. Well,
There has to be like a stamina system, but that never really comes up.
yeah. There. I don't know. Would you implement a stamina system in a full dive game though? Like, because you would
Yeah,
think.
and I mean, Sally seems to be exhausted, but she's not physically moving her body in the final battle.
I think a lot of that's probably could be attributed to say like having no MP and like no maybe skills that are like once per day use or whatever being worn out. I don't know because it's weird because you would think okay, do you implement a stamina system in like a full dive game? Well, it would make sense to do it from game balance. It makes game balance easier to have a stamina system, but in a game that's supposed to be about immersion, it would be very, I think, immersion breaking, like your stamina just being zero. It's like a stamina system you implement would almost have to be very broad, not like what we know
Well,
in games.
yeah, no, it would have to be very, I want to say insidious in that after a few hours of like heavy exercise, you're like, wow, I'm really tired.
Yeah. It'd be really,
And it's not. It would be an impossible, but I mean, you're still doing a full dive VR thing, so you have access to people's brains.
yeah, it would just be very, man, that'd
Hit
be
the
so hard to
hit the
implement.
neurons that control uh your your exhaustion.
Yeah, but at the same time, they're hitting the neurons that control your taste, like in your enjoyment of taste when you eat food.
Hmm.
So I don't know if I would be that concerned about it implementing the hitting the ones that do that. I just think it'd be really hard to program
Oh yeah.
because you'd have to have like each skill and each action like take stamina, but unlike what we know from a game where it would take like large amounts of stamina, you'd be taking very small quantities off the stamina
Yeah.
that just would build up to, oh man, I've been doing heavy workouts or like heavy combat for a long period of time.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be so difficult. All right. I'm trying to think. I think we should just get into kind of
Different
hit.
characters.
Well,
or just hits or miss.
I think
Because we were talking about all sorts of stuff.
there's not much structure to this one today.
No.
But part of that has to do with the show itself. It's so lighthearted and there's no real plot to it. There's no character development really to it. It's kind of just a go along for the adventure, have laughs, and enjoy the ride.
Yeah, don't look too closely at anything.
Yeah, so there's really not much to talk about as far as character development or any of that. But let's actually before we get into hit picks and nitpicks, what's your favorite character?
Me.
You? Oh, me. As in
The
MII. Yeah. Me.
Yeah, the Flame Emperor, but she's cute when there's nobody else is around.
Yeah, she has that persona of like everyone always talks about, oh, her charisma is amazing. Like, you know, she's got ridiculous charisma, and yeah, no one's around, and she just turns into a
Crybaby.
wimp crybaby. Yeah, it's like, oh, I let everyone down. They're all gonna hate me.
I'll get you next time.
Yeah, she is pretty great. She is a really good one. The fight with her was really, I thought, pretty well done too. It was really nice. The it's I can't imagine actually writing this series. Like, how do you make a fight against Maple seem not just one-sided?
Yeah.
Um,
And that fight definitely felt like Maple would have lost had she not had absurd skills.
yeah, if she, more particularly, if she didn't have Machine God, because Machine God was the big crutch in that for her. It's like, okay, at that point, only one person had seen Machine God, which I think is when she saved Sally. And even then, it depends how closely they looked at her, because, you know, she was raining down hell upon all of them.
Right.
So I think only a couple people actually noticed that she was a giant mecha.
Right.
But that was kind of the first real reveal of Machine God. And yeah, without that, I think she actually potentially could have lost. No, she's a really good pick. For me, I don't know, because there is so many good characters in this, and they're all so well written. I'm trying to think who my favorite might be, because I kind of like is the crafter chick. Like, she's just,
I could see that. And you tend to like crafters in general. So
yeah. But on top of that, I feel like the humor behind her and the way they wrote her is really good, because you kind of get that feel that her and was it Kuromu are gonna like have some sort of relationship or something. The one that introduced is to Maple.
Yeah,
like
they seem to know each other prior a little bit.
Yeah, they're
Maybe
both probably veteran. We know he's a veteran player, so you have that feeling that they've probably been playing games together for quite a while and like just knowing each other for quite a while. But I just love also her humor. Like the amount of times that Maple, they'll like get summoned out by Maple for Maple to show off an OP ability, and is just like, it's fine as long as we're allies. Like,
yeah.
It's like, she's OP, but whatever, I'm her friend. It's like that mentality. It's so perfect. It's like, yeah. All right, but let's get into, like I said, there's not much to this. So let's just start talking about stuff that we love and stuff we hate. So First off, I want to start with the episode one. You immediately get the humor from this by like she sets out to fight a monster and she finds this like small bunny looking thing. And what does she do? She goats it. She encourages it to hurt her.
You can do it. You can do it.
Come on, Mr. Bunny. You got this. Come on, hit me harder. You can do this. Like, and she apparently seems to spend like hours
Hours.
in game, like
Yeah.
encouraging this thing to hurt her.
And totally fine. She thinks it's hilarious the whole time. I
And
don't
the,
know. I don't know about you, but I'm not sure I can do the same thing for 3 hours straight and still think it's as funny as the first minute.
yeah, we also though have to remember we don't know what the in-game to out-of-game time frame is in here. We know what it is for events. Like the first event was if I remember, it was actually I'm trying to remember now. It was 2 hours out of game. Oh no, sorry, the second event. So the second event was 1 week in game, but it was 2 hours out of game.
Mm-hmm.
So that is fast. I mean, they talk about changing time for events and stuff, but
Yeah.
if that's the case and they're willing to go that fast, I would imagine maybe it's like a day to an hour in normal time or something like that.
I
So
could see that.
so like okay, she spent, half an hour like goading this bunny to attack her and hurt her. Okay, maybe it kind of makes sense. Um so
Yeah,
I
if
thought
her
yeah,
I mean, if you take the meta view of like her brain is still getting used to the time dilation, it didn't feel like that long to her.
that too possibly, yeah. Maybe it did feel like half an hour to her as like or 15 minutes or whatever.
Hmm.
Um but yeah, just the hit pick of the comedy because then she turns and follows up with the bee and is like, "Oh, I'll just play dead so it keeps spurting me with like poison
Yeah.
and upping my immunity." Like, what the oh no, I'm dying. Uh, Freaking just goading everything into attacking her. And this
Hmm.
goes back to our comment of why do more people not do this? If it's that simple that you can just like walk out there and just keep telling a monster to attack you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe it was because she's a great shielder, but apparently, I think they say it earlier in the game that nobody plays great shielders.
Uh, I mean, I could imagine that even if they don't make it. Like, how many people play diehard tanks? Like in a lot of games you play, a lot of the times people want the tankiest thing they can be without being useless, I guess, outside of being a tank.
Yeah.
So I could see how people might do like warrior classes or something that can be tanky but aren't so
Yeah.
bad at attacking because they're super
A
diehard.
lot, a lot of people like to play DPS.
Yeah. So
I
you,
think, I think desire on MMOs for classes played is like uh, DPS tank or DPS caster tank healer.
yeah, that's. I actually think healer might be above tank. I don't know. I think it depends on the game. Like, what's their
Yeah,
implementation of a
yeah.
tank?
How fun is the game? Is it to play?
Yeah, and on top of that, certain games like you look at something like World of Warcraft, and there's such variety in tanks that it makes sense because they have not only like health blocking tanks, but you've got dodge tanks, you've got mitigation tanks. Like there's so many, some use armor versus some use like just health pools. I think
Hmm.
that's where this game is interesting because I think when Sally chooses to be a swashbuckler, she mentions that they're somewhat they're dodge tanks in essence. So like you can
Yes.
play a swashbuckler as a tank, it's a dodge tank versus like a shield tank. So I could see Great Shield being not very popular if you have stuff like swashbuckler dodge tanking, where people would rather just avoid damage
Right.
and tank versus like having to just stand there and take it.
Yeah.
Um,
I like playing dodge tanks, honestly.
if there's an option, I typically prefer dodge tanks over shielder tanks.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so the humor of that. Oh, and the um, back to humor. I took a pounding, but I liked it.
And she bit her tongue. I
Yeah.
was like, All right, man. Well, how old are you?
Yep. I like how everyone's like, I think she slipped up on that. It's like, yeah, you think so? You think so? Being super
Yeah,
bashful and saying I took a pounding, but I liked it.
yeah,
Yeah. And she didn't, is even the funnier part. After that
yeah.
event, I love they actually mentioned the stats, and I wrote them down that in that first event, she took 0 damage. She got attacked a lot. She defeated 2,028 people during that first event
Wow.
and took 0 damage.
Oh, I actually also wrote that down
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
And that's why it's even more funny that she's like, I took a pounding, but I liked it. It's like, no, you didn't. You didn't at all.
You you got touched a couple of times,
Yeah.
but took no damage.
There's a couple of people that she let like hit her with their swords. Like there's a
Yeah,
couple of times that people like swung and hit her in the thigh or something, and she's just like, oh, or like hit her in the head, and she's just like, meh.
yeah,
Like doesn't matter because at that point she had, I'm trying to think, 800 something. I
yeah. I
think.
think 800-ish.
Yeah, I think her vitality. Yeah, at the end of episode one, her vitality was 864. So yeah, in that event, she had nearly 1,000 vitality.
Yeah.
And this is where it's like I want to know what the average is because these people just hit her but didn't do any damage.
Also, they have this instanced PvP thing where they just dumped all of their players. What, like,
Yeah, I'm going to assume that there's a sign up period for these
well,
events.
but also like, you the level limit. If you had Pain at max level in that fight, is he just out leveled everyone killing them, or
My
is there like a standardized level?
my assumption is that in a game like this where skills are varied and vast and you have to earn them, is that they probably actually do a stat balance where they do like a stat squish to balance out higher level versus lower level because your benefit of higher level is going to then be like your skills and abilities.
Mhm.
So your stat and level itself as a base unit is not as important as much as like what you've obtained from leveling. So it kind of helps lower levels come up to the tier of a higher level.
Mm.
So I would assume that there's probably some sort of stat squish. But then again, these guys are bad at their games, so
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably that Pain can walk into the low level section where everybody spawn and swings his sword 15 times and everyone is dead.
yeah, they do mention that he won readily in that
Yes.
first event. And if she killed, almost or just over
2000.
2,000 people, what did he stop? And they
Yeah,
like,
I didn't
yeah,
really see that
yeah,
screen, but
they said readily that he beat him. And we see at one point during the final event that he like takes out a bunch of people and what's his name comments like, yeah, you didn't even have to use a skill or anything. Like he just swung his sword and took him out. Like,
yeah.
so yeah, I mean it's possible that's what it is. Yeah, I'm trying to think what other hit picks I have or nitpicks. Do you have any covered?
I'm not good at writing those. But I did enjoy that. I do like all of the characterization. Like all the characters are the appropriate level of goofy. I think they need to be for this level of show.
Yeah,
Nobody's real serious or anything. Even hyper serious Pain and like his order of the holy sword are still kind of a bit goofy.
they I do appreciate the fact that they seem to know the feel that they wanted for this story and they managed to maintain it. Um, as I mentioned in the my my little comment that I think it was in the, yeah, that it's pretty lighthearted. Even when they try to get serious during the third event and all that, it's still pretty lighthearted. Part of that is there is no stakes. There's no plot, which leaves very
Yeah,
few stakes for them if they lost. So it keeps that
yeah.
lighthearted feel.
This isn't SAO. We're trapped in a game, and I feel like this might be a little bit of a not parody, but stab at it. So SAO is like the one you think of when you think of like a full dive MMO sort of thing. And that was always like, for what it is, very serious. You'll die. If you die in the game, you die in real life thing. And this is definitely not at all that.
No, yeah, it's this at all doesn't concern itself with that, which I think is, like you said, almost like it almost does have a feel of a spoof of that genre, where they're kind of making fun of like how overpowered the characters get, how ridiculous the situation is that these people are in, with these insane abilities, with these insane like gotchas,
And like last second pull skill pullouts, like, oh, now he can wield 2 swords. Oh, now she just turns into a mecha.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what's that called? I'm trying to remember what it's called when something like conveniently happens.
Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah, Ex Machina. Yeah, there's a lot of those in this, and I think a lot of that is that play. There was one that I was like, oh, that's
If
like,
this was from somebody else's perspective, like we follow Maple and find out how she got all of these things. If we followed the perspective of somebody else who was fighting Maple as like, if say Pain fought Maple like at every turn, and you saw it the whole show from his perspective, like Maple just keeps pulling out bullshit every time.
yeah, you'd be sitting there. Actually, that would be hilarious. This is actually a show I would love a spin-off of. I would love a spin-off of this show, because that would be the hilarious part, is like you take another serious character who like just keeps running into her, and it's like, okay, what the heck? This is broken. This is ridiculous. Then everyone starts talking about, oh, she just dumped full vitality. It's like, okay, she dumped full vitality. So that means she has like no strength. She has like no agility. So I can try to use this strategy to like beat her next time I find her. And then he goes to fight her. And then all of a sudden she's like pulling cover move to like jump all over the place and like get
Yeah,
out of the
yeah.
way. And then all of a sudden she's like turning into an angel, and her allies then are like beating the crap out of you and you can't do anything about it. And then all of a sudden she's turning into a demon and then turning into a mecha, and you're like, what the heck do I do? Like, her build is just breaking itself. It'd be great. I would love to see a spin-off of this. I don't know which character they would pick for it though.
It would have to be some rando, because like none of the characters show up enough. Like it would have to be somebody else starts the game and runs into Maple and they're like, I'm into PvP. You want to fight me? And then she just destroys them in the first fight. And he goes, she was really strong. I want to fight her again. And then he does some training and then he comes back and then fights her again. But then she pulls out more nonsense.
Yeah, because I'm trying to think how many times they could technically. So it would be easy to just pick some random person and say that they were in the first event. That'd be simple enough. Okay, and then you could re-script the entire thing, because it could be one of the moments we didn't see during the first event. Like she beat over 2,000 people. We saw maybe 100 or something. So
Yeah.
they could easily redo that. After that, I don't know, because they could be part of one of the groups that she attacks during the final event that we don't see when she goes on a rampage.
Well, I mean, like you just have separate, unrelated scenes to
Yeah.
all of the things that they did in this show. Just like while this was happening during this episode, she also met this guy.
Yeah. They would be almost an entire rewrite, which is good. That also means that it'd be so much new content that I think it would actually be a more entertaining show.
Yeah.
So I would love to see, a spin-off where you just, someone who's like looking at these top 3, like looking at me, Payne, and Maple, and just being like, what the heck is with people in this game?
Right.
It's like, what? I mean, especially Maple, because at least Payne and me, you can like summarize their builds in very few words.
Yeah.
And then for Maple, it's like, I can summarize 80% of her build in very few words, and then the rest, I don't know how to explain.
Yes.
Just broken. I do have one nitpick I want to bring up, which is during that fight, actually, of the big bird. Why does Hydra do more damage the second time she uses it? Talk about a like Machina situation where it's like, oh, I'm going to use Hydra. The bird just freezes the Hydra and breaks it. Oh, and it
Yeah.
does like this much damage. It barely scratched it. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden I use Hydra later and it like does the whole poison flood thing and like kills the bird. It's like you're telling me that you did that much while you were getting your butt kicked? Like,
Well, we made our overpowered boss, but we only gave it a uh one massive skill cancel skill, and
yeah.
it has a 5-minute cooldown, so it can only do that once.
Or she rolled a nat 20 on that Hydra damage. It's like it crit hit and that thing failed its poison save.
Yeah,
So
something like that.
it just did it one
With-
shot it in essence. It's like, okay, all right. I just kind of wish that one they would have pulled, you know, even if they pulled the whole thing of like them chipping away at it or something, like Sally chipping away
Yeah.
at it, or Sally, you know, she got her Stout Guardian out of nowhere. Like she earned it during the fight and that saved
Mhm.
their butt. They could have done the same with Sally. Like had Sally earn some ridiculous ability or something and then she save them by doing the final hit. It just felt
Like
a
a
little,
bleed attack sort of thing.
yeah, it just felt really annoying that they reused Hydra and it just worked this time.
Yeah,
It's like, we're not supposed to look at this that closely. It does seem
I
like
know.
a bit of piss poor writing. So I had that
I,
nitpick.
I've got a nitpick.
Yeah.
In that final battle against Pain, Pain just has the ability to use his skills faster than Maple. That's
Yeah.
why she can't cover move.
Yeah. I mean, we assume in
Like
this
a
game you
couple.
have to call out the ability to use it. So it's like, okay, so to be faster than her, you'd have to be able to use your ability before she can say cover move, in essence,
Yeah,
or like to activate it.
like realize that she's going to do this, and then before she finishes saying the word, do your own thing.
Yeah. It is very uh poor writing, like just convenient writing, I guess, to put it.
Yeah. And also, like, Pain just has the ability to swing his sword once and near, if not instant kill somebody, then instant kill somebody.
At least from his perspective, it makes a little more sense since he's potentially got 20 levels on everyone else. So like his damage scaling just might be that ridiculously strong.
Hmm.
Um,
I understand that. I was just,
yeah,
again, I'm bothered by the fact that this PvP event is also doesn't seem to have stat squashing.
yeah, and if it does, it is. I mean, I guess to an extent, if it did have stat, they could have scalar stat squashing, where it's like, okay, if you're within, say, 10 levels of each other, your stats are going to squash to be very similar. But if you're
Mm.
outside of 10 levels of each other, then it's in essence not squashing them because should a level 60 really be fighting a level 20? Or like, you know, it could be one of those things where,
Yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying. It's just
yeah, it's,
he's very incredibly strong. Like including, I know they added piercing attacks, but apparently Pain can do all of Maple's health in like one swing.
yeah, and that's the one I don't. So this is, I think, where part of the translation issue is, or game issue, is they use vitality and defense very interchangeable. Like throughout, I mean, even the title of the show is translated using defense, and a lot of the show says vitality inside it.
Hmm.
So as far as I can understand, vitality that she's leveling up increases both her health and her defense. I don't know if that's actually the case. Because if that is the case, yeah, how the heck is he doing her health in like one strike? Her health would
Yeah.
be oh just insanely high.
Yeah. And I mean, those two girls have problems playing the game because they put all of their points into strength. And Pain, being a more reasonable speedrunner, probably did not put all of his skills or all his points into strength.
Yeah.
But strength is the skill that would have, or the stat which would be doing damage to Maple.
Yeah. Because, well, that or agility. Because it could be that thing of depending if it's like a finesse weapon or a non finesse weapon, it might damage
Yeah,
scale
and
based off.
he does have super speed.
So he might be more of an agility build using, and his sword might be more of a finesse style or something. Like it
Yeah.
might scale off of agility or scale off both. Could be that thing where like agility gives it,
I,
1-to-1 and like strength gives it a half. So like if you split between the two, you're still damage scaling. I don't know.
I feel like they actually just gave him a hidden stat that he put all of his points into called like uh, the power of light or something because
Yeah.
he's got such a I'm the protagonist energy.
He's almost got a paladin feel. Like,
Yeah,
I mean, he's
but
the leader of the Order of the Holy
he
Swords and stuff, but yeah.
yeah.
So it is kind of, it's obvious that they made an OP character because they need you to somewhat believe that Maple's gonna lose. But once again, there's like not really stakes to it, so whatever. Uh,
Right.
I guess. Actually, a bit of a hit pick I have. I do like their use of montages. I do feel that they used them at appropriate times, that they were fun,
Yeah.
engaging.
Yeah, they were pretty entertaining, and they didn't like overstay their welcome in any way.
Yeah, and it also, I think, was appropriate from the standpoint of they could have just skipped it and been like, hey, it's, right before the event now and we're all stronger. But it kind of added that feel and like you were going along for the adventure. So I did greatly appreciate their use of montages.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. This thing is just, it's kind of ridiculous.
The show where you can't look too closely at anything.
But at the same time, was enjoyable because we've had some that if you look too closely at, they fall apart. But even despite that, they were not fun. I guess Fruit of Evolution is kind of one of those where
Yeah, oh, yeah.
it was like, okay,
Well, I wouldn't. I definitely wouldn't have put this on that level. This is a closer view to almost in. I'm what's the word? Neither of us can pronounce the feel good slice of life shows.
oh yeah,
This is closer to that than it is to like an adventure anime.
yeah. With that being said, I feel like both of these are trying to accomplish the same thing, and this one just did it better. They almost both are satires slash spoofs of their genre, which both happen to be video game, but Fruit of Evolution more isekai slash game, whereas this is just the video game aspect of it. I feel they're both shooting for that same thing of being a comedy, like satire slash spoof. But this one did it with being, I don't, part of me wants to say more serious, but I think it's more serious to it being a enjoyable story. Whereas I think Fruit of Evolution just, it's like the old 90s and 80s spoof movies, like Robin Hood Men in Tights,
Mm-hmm.
that stuff, where they just, it went
Yeah,
super hard comedy, like too far comedy almost, to where it
yeah,
became bad. I actually like those movies. I
yeah,
think those
yeah.
ones did it well, but
I think to have that level of humor, you have to be in the
campy.
maybe
Yeah.
campy, but also in the appropriate language. Like if you make a joke about
Yeah.
the prime minister of Japan, I'm not gonna get that.
Yeah, true. And that, who knows? Actually, maybe part of that is the Fruit of Evolution issue too. Is maybe some of it's just not translating right. And like I said, obviously this has translation issues because the title says defense. A lot of the subtitles say vitality, and that does make an impact because I associate vitality to health, not defense. Defense I associate to like armor, and
Yeah,
uh, I think it's kind of, you can overlook it in this, but translation obviously does impact how we take in these shows.
yeah, and cultural references don't always hit.
Yeah,
It was what the point I was making.
yeah, and especially that because even in this one, like I had to double check because when I saw her call her pet Oboro, my brain immediately went Oboros, as in the
Hmm.
snakes. I was
Right.
like, obviously that's not right. So I actually had to double check and look up, okay, what is a boro? And it's like, oh, it's a minced meat or fish. Ha, now it makes sense. She calls her turtle syrup because she's maple, so it's a food. And then she calls it a boro, which is a food, which kind of goes along with syrup. Okay, the joke makes a little bit more sense now. So sometimes we have to put extra effort into making stuff translate properly or understanding references.
Yeah, I thought Oboro was some reference to an ancient spirit, like a famous spirit from Japanese lore.
That's kind
But
of what
I
I
have
figured.
no idea.
That's kind of what you would think, because Fox Spirit, like
Hmm.
whatever. And it's possible that it's both. When I looked it up, a lot of what popped up was obviously other characters in media that are called Oboro. And like I think
Mm,
someone from Fire Emblem, I think, is also called Oboro or whatever. But one of the things that popped up was that it's also related to minced meat. And I was like, that's probably the one they were going for because it makes sense
sure.
with syrup. So yeah, overall, love the show. Don't look at it too closely. And
Yeah.
it's just an enjoyable, relaxing, but yet fun, not uber relaxing show, but fun side of things. And especially for
Definitely.
people who play video games.
Yes. Definitely a fun pull from the darkness that of shows that you didn't watch during your skipping section.
Yeah, yeah. This was one of them that someone actually like kept bringing up to me, and I ended up watching during that time, and it was great fun, and I enjoyed watching it again. It was easy to rewatch. It's actually the show I took the least amount of notes on, like while watching it, because
Yeah.
there's
There's a lot to talk. We had a lot to talk about, but none of it was particularly like analytical,
yeah,
which is fine. I prefer this.
yeah. It's just so much. Like most of the notes are just stuff that's just like this is kind of ridiculous, or there's not a lot of reference, there's not a lot of plot, there's not a lot of character development. It's just kind of along for the ride video game, which
Hmm.
there just was not as much need to take notes for, which is nice. I prefer that. We had plenty to talk about as far as making fun of just those game devs. And their portrayal of them is the GMs is just funny too. These little
Yeah,
characters.
rabbit characters or something.
But yeah, I hope all of you, though, enjoyed listening to us talk about this. Once again, please reach out to us. Tell us what do you want us to do next. Like I said, keep an eye out on Twitter for what we're going to do next. And you can email us, animedigression@gmail.com, or once again, our Twitter @animedigression, and let us know. I kind of want to do something fun again next. We'll see. There's so many isekais and stuff that we have to cover because that's all everything is right now.
Yeah, that for years.
Yeah,
Luckily, I like as guys. There's just a lot.
there's I know plenty of people who have in essence stopped watching current anime because there's so much trash isekai that
Hmm.
they just don't care anymore. Um, but yeah, let us know. With that, I think we are done. So thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. Bye.
Bye bye.